A very good afternoon to you. This is TV Sapientia on Star Times Channel 260. Today is Thursday, the 16th of October, 2025. My name is Joe Igbo. In our news headlines this afternoon, the federal government has initiated plans to accelerate the judicial process for the release of awaiting trial inmates in correctional facilities across the country. The federal government has announced new guidelines for admission into tertiary institutions in the country. A former governor of Bayelsa State and senator representing Bayelsa West, Seriake Dickson, has distanced himself from Governor Diri's defection from the People's Democratic Party (PDP), saying there was no reason for the governor to abandon a party that brought him to power twice. And on the foreign scene, the African Union has announced the immediate suspension of Madagascar after a military coup in the country. Now the details of the news. The federal government has initiated plans to accelerate the judicial process for the release of awaiting trial inmates in correctional facilities across the country. The Minister of Interior, Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo, made the disclosure yesterday during a visit to the Medium Security Custodial Center, Kuje, Abuja. Tunji-Ojo said the move is aimed at decongesting correctional centers, especially for awaiting trial inmates. He said that the ministry was working closely with the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation to bridge the gap for conviction of inmates. The minister said the government is considering inmates that perhaps have spent more time awaiting trial than they would have suffered or spent if they were convicted. The Rivers State Judiciary has released 150 inmates from the Port Harcourt Maximum Security Custodial Center as part of its jail delivery exercise for the 2024-2025 legal year. The exercise, aimed at decongesting custodial centers across the state, saw 109 inmates freed by the Magistrates' Court and 41 others released by the Chief Judge, Justice Simeon Chibozo Amadi. Speaking during the ceremony at the Port Harcourt facility, Justice Chibozo Amadi described the initiative as both constitutional and humanitarian, carried out under the powers vested on him by the Administration of Criminal Justice Law of Rivers State. He said the review focused on inmates who had spent longer than necessary in custody without trial, those whose case files were missing, and others whose cases warranted reconsideration. The Chief Judge called for closer collaboration among the police, the Ministry of Justice, the Judiciary, and the Correctional Service to enhance investigations and ensure speedy dispensation of justice. He urged the free inmates to turn a new leaf and contribute positively to society. The Edo State Governor Senator Monday Okpeholo has officially absorbed over 5,000 contract teachers into the state's Ministry of Education as permanent staff members. According to a statement by the Chief Press Secretary to the Governor, Fred Itua, the teachers had been on contract with a monthly stipend of 65,000 naira during the administration of Godwin Obaseki. They were formally handed appointment letters during a ceremony held at Government House yesterday. Governor Okpeholo, who personally oversaw the distribution of the letters, emphasized the government's commitment to valuing its teachers. Addressing the teachers earlier, the Commissioner for Education, Padi Yamu, expressed deep appreciation for their perseverance over the past 3 years, despite the challenges of being on contract. The Senate will today screen Professor Joash Amupitan following his appointment as chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC). This was disclosed in a notice issued by the Director of Information in the Office of the Secretary, Research and Information, Bula Audu B. Allah. According to the notice, lawmakers will conduct the screening in the Senate chamber. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had nominated Professor Amupitan as INEC chairman, after which the Council of State unanimously endorsed his appointment to lead the electoral body. The federal government has announced new guidelines for admission into tertiary institutions in the country. The new framework applies to universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education, as well as innovation enterprise academies across the nation. Accordingly, a minimum of 5 credit passes is required in relevant subjects, including English language, obtained in not more than 2 sittings for admission into universities. Mathematics is compulsory for science, technology, and social science courses. For polytechnics, ND level, a minimum of 4 credit passes is required in relevant subjects, including English language for non-science courses and mathematics for science-related programs. Polytechnics HND level, a minimum of 5 credit passes is required in relevant subjects, including English language and mathematics. Colleges of Education NCE level, a minimum of 4 credit passes is required in relevant subjects, with English language mandatory for arts and social science courses, and mathematics required for science, vocational and technical programs. Colleges of Education B.Ed level, a minimum of 5 credit passes, including English language and mathematics, as applicable to the course of study. The Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa, in a statement by the Director of Press and Public Relations, Federal Ministry of Education, Folashade Boriowo, indicated that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has approved the new entry guidelines, adding that the revised national guidelines for entry requirements into Nigerian tertiary institutions was designed to remove barriers hitherto experienced in the course of education while maintaining academic standards. You are watching TV Sapientia on Star Times Channel 260. The news continues shortly after this time. Please don't go away. Welcome back to the rest of the Sapientia News Bulletin at 1 p.m. My name is Joe Igbo. A former governor of Bayelsa State and senator representing Bayelsa West, Seriake Dickson, has distanced himself from Governor Diri's defection from the People's Democratic Party, PDP. Speaking to newsmen yesterday, Dickson described Diri's defection as sad and ridiculous, warning that the growing wave of opposition figures crossing over to the ruling APC poses a grave danger to the nation's democracy. Senator Dickson, who governed Bayelsa State between 2012 and 2020, criticized some PDP leaders for running to the ruling party instead of fixing the internal problems they helped create. He said, "A democracy without opposition ceases to be democracy. It becomes dictatorship and totalitarianism." The senator revealed that Governor Diri had consulted him several times before the defection, but said he saw no compelling reason for a second-term governor to abandon the party that brought him to power. The House of Representatives Public Accounts Committee has ordered the Jos Electricity Distribution Company to pay the sum of 72 billion naira to the federal government coffers within 60 days. The committee also directed the Kano Electricity Distribution Company to, within 30 days, remit the sum of 40.7 billion naira, representing 50% of its verified debt of 81.5 billion naira to the federal government. The directive is part of the committee's ongoing investigation into the multi-trillion naira debts owed by electricity distribution companies to the Federation account. The Public Accounts Committee has recovered huge sums of money for the federal government in recent times in both local and foreign currencies. A statement released last night by the media unit of the committee noted that the directive was issued during a public hearing on the documents submitted by the Nigeria Bulk Electricity Trading PLC and the 2021 report of the Auditor General for the Federation, which held in Abuja. The chairman of the committee, Bamidele Salam, highlighted the significance of prompt remittances to the Federation account, saying the federal government would no longer tolerate non-compliance by operators in the power sector. The president of the Association of Retired Principals of Secondary Schools in Nigeria, Ogun State Chapter, Alexander Obadimu, has faulted the federal government's policy removing mathematics as a compulsory requirement for admission to study arts and humanities courses in tertiary institutions. Obadimu said the policy shift did not go down well with many educationists who believe that such a policy would further encourage laziness among students and negatively impact their academic excellence and performance. He made these remarks yesterday while speaking to journalists during the association's third annual congress held in Abeokuta. Recall that the Federal Ministry of Education, in a statement by its spokesperson, Folashade Boriowo, on Tuesday, announced that senior secondary school students in the arts and humanities will no longer be required to present a credit in mathematics in their senior school certificate examination, or SSCE, for tertiary admissions. Obadimu said that mathematics plays an important role in academia and that its absence would create a vacuum in the education sector. Now, this foreign news. The African Union has announced the immediate suspension of Madagascar after a coup saw an elite army unit seize power following President Andry Rajolina's impeachment. AU Commission Chair Mahmoud Ali Yusuf made the announcement after Madagascar's top court confirmed Colonel Michael Randrianirina as president. The military leadership under Colonel Michael Randrianirina has promised elections within 2 years after President Andry Rajolina was impeached, following weeks of popular demonstrations. The Indian Ocean nation was plunged into its worst political upheaval in years after the captured elite military unit took power moments after Parliament voted to impeach Rajolina on Tuesday. The 51-year-old president in power since 2009 appeared to have fled the country as street protests escalated. Madagascar is the latest of several former French colonies to have fallen under military control since 2020 after coups in Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Gabon, and Guinea. The new military leader said it wasn't a coup but a case of taking responsibility because the country was on the brink of collapse. He pledged elections in 18 to 24 months and told local media that consultations were underway to appoint a prime minister and form a new government. To end the Sapientia TV news at 1 p.m., a recap of the major headlines. The federal government has initiated plans to accelerate the judicial process for the release of awaiting trial inmates in correctional facilities across the country. The federal government has announced new guidelines for admission into tertiary institutions in Nigeria. A former governor of Bayelsa State and senator representing Bayelsa West, Seriake Dickson, has distanced himself from Governor Diri's defection from the People's Democratic Party (PDP), saying there was no reason for the governor to abandon a party that brought him to power twice. And finally, from our foreign desk, the African Union has announced the immediate suspension of Madagascar after a military coup in the country. That was the Sapientia TV news at 1 p.m. On behalf of the editorial and technical crew, I am Joe Igbo. Good afternoon and thanks for choosing TV Sapientia.